Brooke walked across the marble terrace of the Grand Venetian Hotel under a sky the color of Venetian glass, shimmering aquamarine streaked with wisps of peach, and for a moment the bustle of her business trip, the relentless negotiations over the new Forrester Valentino capsule collection, felt distant, almost soothing. She paused at the ornate wrought iron railing, her fingertips tracing the delicate scrollwork as she looked down at the languid Grand Canal below, gondoliers steering sleek black boats through emerald water. The late afternoon sun warmed her shoulders, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh basil and sweet lemon blossoms. In that fleeting second of serenity, she closed her eyes, remembering the last time she and Ridge had stood on a balcony. Long ago, on their honeymoon, the Mediterranean illuminated by countless stars, and she allowed herself a quiet exhale, a break from the suffocating tension back home, where Ridge's recent coldness and seething jealousy over her meetings with Bill Spencer had shadowed every conversation, every glance. She pictured Ridge's furrowed brow, the way his jaw clenched when he imagined her in the arms of another man, and despite the ache that jealousy stirred in her, she reminded herself how deeply he loved her, how he could never fully relinquish her to anyone else. With one last lingering breath of Italian air, she turned to fetch her phone from her designer tote, an email notification blinking insistently, and took a single measured step forward. The next instant, her heel caught on the edge of a velvet rope barrier, her balance betrayed by the slick polish of the marble. Time slowed, the canvas of the Venetian skyline tilted, the balcony railing rushed toward her, and she pitched forward, arms flailing as the world spiraled. A frantic gasp tore from her lungs, and she tumbled over the edge, her Gucci heel leaving a scuff mark on the stone before gravity claimed her. Shards of the balcony's tiled surface snapped beneath her as she plummeted down toward the cobblestone courtyard nearly 30 feet below. She struck the ground with a thunderous crack, pain exploding through her body in white-hot shards, her right leg bent unnaturally beneath her, ribs snapping beneath the impact, a harsh shelf of stone biting into her shoulder. Darkness surged at the edges of her vision as a fountain of pain lanced through her skull, and her mind filled with the muffled echo of her own scream. Back in Los Angeles, Ridge sat in the Forrester boardroom, poised to present sketches to an eager panel of investors, when his phone vibrated against the polished mahogany table. He glanced down at the incoming message. Urgent. Brooke accident. Call immediately. His hand went cold. The room tilted. Investors' polite interest blurred into a distant echo. Excuse me, he murmured, voice catching, and bolted from the room. In the elevator, the walls seemed to contract around him as dread coagulated in his chest. His mind reeled with visions of Brooke's smile, her laughter brushing against his heart like warm silk, and guilt gnawed at him. Had his jealousy driven her away? Had Bill's name on her lips, the lingering text messages, caused her to seek solace in another city, another life? The doors opened, and he raced his car, the engine roaring as he tore down Sunset Boulevard, every red light a dagger in his nerves. He fumbled for his phone, dialing Ridge's sister, Taylor, who answered on the second ring, her voice calm, but laced with concern. It's Brooke, he hissed, barely steady. She fell from a balcony in Venice. They don't know how bad it is. Taylor's breath hitched. She'd hoped this would draw Ridge closer to her, to heal the chasm jealousy had driven between them, but now the stakes were devastatingly real. Get on the next flight, she urged with brittle composure. I'm already on standby. In Venice, paramedics worked swiftly, strapping Brooke's broken form onto a stretcher, immobilizing her spine, administering oxygen as her eyelids fluttered in and out of consciousness. She mumbled incoherent fragments of Ridge's name, her fingers twitching as if reaching for him. A flurry of Italian voices translated in her ears, bright surgical lights beckoned, and pain, red and searing, engulfed her senses before she drifted into blackness. Ridge's flight landed just as a team of surgeons wheeled her into the operating theater. Doctors spoke in clipped English, their voices urgent: compound fractures, internal bleeding, possible concussion, fractured vertebrae. Ridge stood at the threshold, white-knuckled, his heart hammering, guilt clashing with terror. A nurse placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. He barely registered her presence as he watched the doors close behind Brooke, her dark hair splayed across the gurney like spilled ink. Taylor arrived in the sterile corridor moments later, her heels echoing against the tile floor. Ridge turned to her, eyes hollow and red-rimmed. "I almost lost her," he whispered hoarsely, his voice cracking under the weight of his fear. "It's my fault. I was consumed with jealousy, thinking she'd left me for Bill, and I should have called her, reminded her she belonged here with me." Taylor's chest clenched. She had longed for Ridge's confession of love, but this was the price she never wanted to pay. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm, but he brushed it away, stumbling down the corridor toward the empty ICU waiting room. Hours stretched into an eternity as they waited through a series of tense updates. Brooke's surgery lasted well into the night, doctors fanning her chest monitors, irrigating internal bleeds, repairing shattered bone. Ridge sat in a stiff plastic chair, head in hands, murmuring apologies into the dimly lit silence. Taylor hovered nearby, torn between empathy for his pain and the bitter realization that Ridge's devotion would always circle back to Brooke, that no twist of fate, however tragic, could rewire his heart to belong to her instead. When the chief surgeon finally emerged, dawn's pale light filtering through high windows, Ridge leapt to his feet. The surgeon's expression was professional, measured. "Mrs. Logan, Forrester is stable," he said, voice low. "Her injuries are severe. Multiple rib fractures, a displaced femur, possible spinal involvement. We've contained the immediate bleeding, but she'll require extensive rehabilitation, and there's a real risk of nerve damage. Concussion symptoms are present. She may be disoriented when she wakes, confused, and in considerable pain. We've sedated her to give her body a chance to heal." Each word was a blow. Ridge felt his knees buckle. Taylor moved to support him, her heart achingly full of compassion, but also of sorrowful clarity. As she studied him, she knew that no matter how wide the chasm jealousy had carved between them, Ridge's soul would never find refuge in her arms when Brooke's life hung in the balance. His future, his very identity, was irrevocably intertwined with the woman lying unconscious behind those ICU doors. In the silent aftermath, Ridge slipped into Brooke's private hospital suite, drawn by a force he could neither deny nor resist. He knelt beside her, brushing a stray curl from her forehead, whispering broken confessions of love and regret, promising to be the husband she deserved, vowing to make amends for every jealous thought that had tainted his love. When Brooke's eyelids fluttered, he seized the moment, cupping her hand in his. She looked at him with unfocused eyes, pain and recognition warring in her gaze. "Ridge," she croaked, voice brittle. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I'm here," he said, voice thick with relief and unguarded devotion. "I'll never let you go again." In that fragile moment, as dawn broke fully over Venice and the first rays of sunlight shimmered through the Venetian blinds, Taylor watched from the doorway, heart heavy yet resolute. She realized that Ridge's heart would always belong to Brooke, that no amount of longing or second chances could rewrite the truth of their love. And though jealousy had ignited this tragedy, it was also the catalyst that forced Ridge to confront the depths of his feelings. He loved Brooke more than life itself, more than his pride, more than fear. Taylor exhaled quietly, turning away from the scene, her tears lost in the soft Italian light, understanding at last that some passions could not be redirected, and that the path Ridge would walk from here on would lead him back to Brooke's side. through every challenge and every doubt, until love or loss decided their fate. On CBS's The Bold and the Beautiful, the specter of tragedy and buried secrets casts its shadow across Los Angeles as the residents of the beach house and the halls of Forrester Creations grapple with heartbreak, medical emergencies, and deceptions that could shatter every life they touch. Finn's once steady confidence has given way to a raw struggle against the unbearable truth of Luna Nozawa's fate. In the sterile hum of the hospital corridors, he insists on standing vigil at the door of the ICU, haunted by the memory of Luna's wide, hopeful eyes and the gleam of admiration she had for her older cousin, her first hero in a world that often felt cold and uncaring. Each time the elevator chimes, he braces himself for news, whether the ventilator's hiss will falter or the monitors will flatline, and every update from Grace Buckingham, calm yet grave, tightens the knot in his chest. He remembers Luna not as the frightened, unhinged figure whose final episode of desperation ended in violence, but as the adorable child who once clung to his leg at Forrester's annual summer barbecue, her laughter ringing through the garden like the tinkling of bells. He thinks of the years they lost, the birthdays and milestones he never shared because he didn't know she was his daughter, because the twisted circumstances of Sheila's past kept her hidden. And he chides himself for every moment he might have been able to save her, to steer her away from the path that ended with her lying so pale and broken on a hospital gurney. Meanwhile, the charge nurse wheels Liam Spencer down the same hall, though his predicament is altogether different. A shadow has loomed over him since the bullet fragmented his skull and exacerbated a dormant brain tumor, and now scans reveal aggressive growth that threatens to rob him of speech, memory, or even life itself. Bill Spencer paces outside the operating theater, wrenching his phone in his hand as he prays for mercy while Grace Buckingham works to evacuate the hemorrhage in Liam's cranium, using her scalpel to carve out hope from chaos. The wait is interminable, each tick of the clock a fresh stab of dread, as Bill recalls the moment he learned Liam's condition would demand yet another surgery, sooner rather than later, to excise the tumor before it invaded more critical regions of his brain. In the visitors' lounge, Bridget and Hope hold one another, tears streaking down their cheeks as they phone Ridge and Thomas to rally the family. For all their differences, they are united in fear that Liam, the man who has devoted his every waking hour to caring for Hope, to building a family with her, might be silenced forever by a capricious twist of fate. Back in the private wing, Sheila Sharp hovers at Luna's bedside, her backbone trembling under the weight of regret. She whispers Luna's name into the sterile gloom, wishing with every fiber of her being that she could reach back in time and rewrite history, that she could snatch Luna away from her own spiral of trauma and grant her a second chance at the innocence she lost too soon. Though the beach house has served as Sheila's refuge, an enclave for plotting and hiding from her sins, Luna's downward arc began within those sun-bleached walls, amid the whispering palms and crashing waves that only highlighted the discord beneath. Sheila's heart aches with the recognition that she alone has the knowledge to save Luna, to coax her frightened steps toward therapy, to persuade her that she belongs somewhere besides the cold isolation of a hospital bed. But Luna, fierce and fragile in equal measure, could never endure the tumult of Sheila's world forever. Deacon Sharp stands nearby, arms crossed, his scowl softened by sorrow as he watches his wife's anguish. He has never much cared for Luna's presence, her erratic breakdowns, the horrors she inflicted on the Forresters, the way her past violence put their entire family at risk, but he understands how fiercely Sheila loves her child, even when that love has been warped by secrets and lies. Deacon's own history is littered with mistakes, betrayals, and ill-advised schemes, yet he vows in this moment of crisis to be the steadfast husband Sheila needs, to fetch coffee in the dead of night, to comb Luna's hair back from her forehead, to reassure a guilty mother that she did everything in her power to protect her daughter. In the thrumming hush of the ICU, Sheila leans heavily against Deacon's broad shoulder, tears soaking into his shirt as she confesses that if only she had revealed Luna's paternity to Finn sooner, if only she had allowed the truth to set her free, the little girl might never have spiraled into the madness that ended here. Deacon presses a kiss to her temple and murmurs that they will face whatever comes next together. But in his gut he knows that Sheila's path to redemption will demand more than his support. It will require courage to tear down the walls she built around her heart. As Finn emerges from Luna's room, face pale, soul raw, Deacon greets him with a solemn nod. Over the weeks of tension, they have formed an unspoken bond, two fathers bereft, two men haunted by daughters who trusted them and fell. Initially, Finn recoiled at the thought of Luna's monstrous outbursts. The kidnapping, the violence, the terror, but as death's cold finger closed around her, he remembered her smile, her gentle hand on his arm, the genuine pride she felt when he introduced her as his niece. Now, Finn's grief for Luna blends with compassion for Sheila, forging a fragile camaraderie in which he allows himself to mourn her as the daughter he never truly claimed. Through their shared sorrow, Sheila and Finn draw closer. They sit side by side in the chapel-like waiting room, clasping hands, finding in each other the strength to face the doctor's verdict. Luna's life hangs by a thread, and yet, strange glimmers of hope suggest that her heart still beats, that her lungs still draw breath. And that somewhere, somehow, the little girl who vanished from the beach house in a fit of terror may yet defy death's decree. But if Luna survives, Lee, whose motives remain as opaque as ever, will have to guard her secret more fiercely than ever before. Lee has long possessed the knowledge that Luna might endure the final operation if given the proper medical care, information that could rewrite the fates of every major player in this drama. But Lee also knows that revealing the truth could unleash chaos upon Forrester Creations and the Sharp household alike. So Lee will do what schemers have always done: bury the clues, misdirect inquiries, and make Luna's disappearance into a story no one can verify. Should Luna awaken in some undisclosed facility, weak, confused, and desperate to find her family, Lee must conceal her trail, hide her tracks, and pray that no one too skilled, too determined, uncovers the riddle of her survival. Even as Finn prays for Luna's recovery, he feels unease mingle with his grief. He wonders what price Lee will demand for preserving Luna's life, and what alliances will fracture in the bargain. Meanwhile, Liam's surgery at the adjacent or concludes, and when Grace Buckingham steps into the corridor, her scrubs still flecked with the residue of cerebral fluid, Bill Spencer rushes to her side, desperate for news. Grace's face is taut with exhaustion and relief. The tumor has been removed, she explains, but the damage it inflicted on Liam's neural pathways will demand months of rehabilitation, and there is no guarantee he will recover full motor function or memory. Bill's shoulders slump, and he grips Grace's arm as if anchoring himself to the only solace he has. He thanks her with a quivering voice and promises to shoulder Liam's care as though it were his own heart. Because, in a very real sense, Liam is the son Bill never thought he would lose, the man who inherited both his tenacity and his capacity for love. As Bill holds the door open for Liam's gurney to emerge, he steels himself for the long vigil ahead, the late-night feeds, the speech therapy sessions, the constant monitoring of delicate vitals. Grace offers to stay by Liam's side to guide his first tentative steps in physical therapy, but Bill gently refuses. He will do this himself, he declares, because if there is one role he values above all others, it is that of father and protector. And so, under the flickering hospital fluorescence, two families, united by grief, fueled by love, and shadowed by secrets, brace for the trials that loom on the horizon. Finn confronts the ghosts of a daughter lost, and the prospect of a bond severed by deception. Sheila wrestles with the knowledge that only the truth can free her from the prison of her own making. Deacon stands as the silent sentinel of his wife's redemption. Lee lurks in the wings with motives known only to herself. Liam awakens to a future defined by uncertain healing. And Bill Spencer prepares to fight for his son's life with the unwavering ferocity that built his empire. In the tangled web of the bold and the beautiful, every heart beats, every revelation, every hidden agenda intertwines to spin a tale of sacrifice, survival, and the enduring hope that, even in the darkest hour, love will find a way to light the path forward.